Capitalism, a system in which trade and industry are controlled by private corporations for capital gain. Everything is motivated by efforts to gain and accumulate more capital, and private enterprise is viciously protected by the government. If you live in any Western country, you've experienced it firsthand. One of the most interesting pieces of ideology in capitalism, one which has undoubtedly supported its spread, is a piece which attempts to classify capitalism as a benevolent force in our world. John Mackey, the former CEO of Whole Foods, created a conscious capitalism doctrine. He states that business is good because it creates value. It is ethical because it is based on voluntary exchange. It is noble because it can elevate our existence, and it is heroic because it lifts people out of poverty and creates prosperity. However, Mackey puts forth the benefits of capitalism that do not align with the overall ideology of capitalists. By incorporating a sense of morality into the equation of consumerism, Mackey is popularizing a message that does not seem to be capitalist at all. The popularization of fair trade, responsibly raised, responsibly grown, and other morally backed capitalist endeavors appeal to consumers because they can buy a cup of coffee at Starbucks and feel like they've contributed to a small farmer in Colombia. Messages like this, popularized in an attempt to further promote capitalist ideals, exemplify the emphasis on consumerism. So while they're somewhat beneficial on a global scale, they still use emotional appeal to influence buyers and bring in more money, further perpetuating the primary ideology of capitalism, which is just to accumulate more capital. Most corporations, in order to compete, have to compromise on moral and ethical grounds to reach a level of competitiveness. For example, Apple could not have ever reached the heights that Microsoft did without outsourcing, manipulating cheap labor, and using marketing ploys. This also leaves the consumer somewhat powerless in the field of determining what they should or should not contribute to, as they see the entire system as corrupt. Recognizing that they have little choice in the matter, and witnessing the deeds of capitalist greed in the business world, people will often decide that the entire system is hopeless. This leads to a lack of incentive to fight for any change, as well as a general feeling of wariness towards institutions. Believe it or not, you'll also find many references to capitalist ideology in songs, from Pink Floyd's 1973 hit Money to Cardi B making money moves in 2017. You'll find the inspiration to make your own luck, a popular capitalist phrase, in many different modes of media. Music is not the only perpetrator of capitalist ideals. The TV shows you've watched through the years have most likely granted you some of the values that stick with you today. From Mr. Krabs, the frugal owner of the Krusty Krab, to Oprah.
There's always been patterns in my life whenever I feel like I've grown.
Oprah's ideology promotes
enough
hard
in
work
one
and
place, I move
resilience
on.
in the world of business. Oprah will frequently reference the unjust system that we all take part in, yet simultaneously promote a wholehearted devotion to that system, in the sense that you should use it to achieve your best, most financially stable self. Oprah's solution to strife is as follows. If you're in a bad situation, fix it. If you don't make enough money, work harder. And if you don't have a job, get one. This type of outlook is an individualist one, placing all responsibility in the hands of the person who may be unjustly subjugated to right the wrongs of the system and create justice for themselves, rather than attempt to critique the system in a way that would possibly promote change. This is not necessarily the fault of Oprah. She is just as much a subject to these ideals as the rest of us. Another example is Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook and an accomplished feminist activist. The issue with Sandberg does not lie in her achievements for women, which have been monumental, but rather in her contributions to a similar ideology as Oprah. Perhaps they both have good intentions. However, by hounding women to simply work harder and push through all boundaries in order to reach positions of power, Sandberg and Oprah both act as extended branches of capitalist ideology. The enduring of hardship and strife is promoted by capitalism because without marginalized groups, corporations and those with wealth cannot remain in power, as they would have no source for cheap labor and employees. If the system were to be critiqued and redesigned in such a way that everyone had equal opportunity, the strife to break gender barriers would not be so necessary. The critique of those with influence in media merely illustrates the way in which capitalist ideology permeates almost everything that it touches, from the entirety of the business world, as with John Mackey, to the entertainment industry. This is not to say that everyone has a capitalist agenda, but we should make an attempt to look closely at what is presented to us through these common modes of ideology. Take a look. How are we being influenced?